Coming up on Life, Part 2. Do those computer memory workouts really buff the brain? Will anything help us remember where we put the keys? And later, one of the most important athletes of our time, tennis legend Billie Jean King, on staying young and living for the future. Plus, best-selling author Nelson DeMille on what's great about turning 65. All coming up on Life, Part 2.
Major funding for Life Part 2 was provided by the Atlantic Philanthropies, engaging many to improve the lives of and achieve health and economic security for older adults. And by MetLife Foundation, celebrating the wisdom, talent, and experience of older adults. MetLife Foundation proudly supports Life Part 2.
Welcome to Life, Part 2. I'm Robert Lipsyte. It's commonly agreed that once you reach 50, most names are deleted from the hard drive of your brain. Why does this happen? Is it a serious problem? Can it be fixed? As more and more baby boomers forget more and more, they're taking a very boomer-like approach to the problem. They're going for a workout for their brains. Sometimes it involves so-called brain gyms, but mostly it means sitting in front of a computer and playing some fairly challenging games, which I recently did to find out what kind of shape my brain is in. To make it interesting for you, I competed against a middle-aged producer and a young whippersnapper of a production assistant. The competition took place at a very funny location, the Friars Club in New York City, which is where all the comics hang out. Well, I must say I'm feeling a little intimidated today, my brain on television, but I've got my brain game face on, and my brain handler is Kate Stasio of Posit Science. Thanks so much for joining Life Part 2. Won't you sit down and tell us what it is we're going to do today? Is it a day at the gym? Is it a fitness regime?
Well, these programs are fun to use, but they are clearly not meant to be entertainment. They are really meant to try to drive changes in the brain, both structurally, functionally, and chemically. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the way your brain works, which is kind of the same thing that you do, to your point, for physical fitness.
Kate, for these Olympics of the mind, we are going to be joined by Rich Collier, who is 45, and J.B. Rote, who is 26. Is competition a good thing in this process?
I can say that a lot of people who use our programs in communities, they do get a bit competitive, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that.
Well, in that case, let the games begin.
Let's go. Click on the area where you saw the bird. You're going to see a series of distractor birds. We want to really hone in on the speed of processing skills.
Oh! I'm done.
Why is he done?
You're going to click on the out or in button in the order in which you saw those lines move. Does that make sense to everyone?
Not yet.
What it's doing is it's helping the brain release chemicals called neurotransmitters, and they help you actually focus and concentrate more on the exercises at hand. Of course, I'm rooting for Robert.
Look at a teacher's pet.
It seems tedious.
I am crushing you guys.
Our score combined isn't as high as her score.
You're going to be shown several jewels. You need to follow the two fish that are hiding your jewels. They are bubbles to begin with. This exercise, really about divided attention.
If we were leg wrestling or doing some form of competitive eating, I would be winning.
It's the ability to multitask.
Okay, I'm finished.
And you?
I had 470.
And
Why did it say
you have
116?
116.
Rich, JB, thank you so much for being such great sports and great competitive companions. And Kate, thank you so much for pointing us in such interesting scientific directions.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Could I take this skill to Vegas?
Okay, so I can concentrate, but I'm not much of a multitasker. Should I care? I just happen to be sitting with three brainiacs who have all the answers. Dr. P. Murali Doraiswamy is the Chief of Biological Psychiatry and Senior Fellow at the Center for the Study of Aging at Duke University Medical Center. He is the author, with Lisa Gweither, of the Alzheimer's Action Plan, a practical guide to early detection and living with the disease. Dr. Denise Park holds the T. Boone Pickens Distinguished Chair in Clinical Brain Science at the University of Texas. Dr. Gary Small is a professor of psychiatry at UCLA, where he directs the Memory and Aging Research Center, and he's the author of several books, including The Memory Bible. Welcome all of you to Life Part 2. I have assembled you all here, of course, to discuss my brain. But you know, based on what you saw in that clip, does that stuff mean anything, Dr. Small?
We know that we can train the brain. The brain is a remarkably sensitive organ. And there are now many types of cognitive techniques, training programs, and we've shown that we can improve our function as a result of these programs. They're spilling over into the computer world, and we're seeing programs like the one you played with.
If I did that every day for half an hour before I came to the studio, you know, would my interviews be sharper?
We don't know the answer to that. I would say maybe. And what's lacking right now in terms of our knowledge is, you know, what systematically improves cognitive function over the long term.
Right now, the public is convinced that they can prevent Alzheimer's by doing Sudoku puzzles, and we don't have the evidence for
That's
that.
right, and you don't want someone to spend a lot of money,
that why they're
time, and
popular?
effort.
Well, I think they're
I
fun.
hate
They're
them.
fun. I hate them.
For some people,
Well,
they're
for
fun.
some people, they're fine.
I think that novelty is really critical. And for example, I would argue that crossword puzzles, this is probably controversial. I don't think crossword puzzles improve your cognitive function. Why? Because you're using existing neural structures to activate the answer. What you want to do is build and engage in demanding processing.
Okay, but
Sudoku-
crossword puzzles do make you better at doing crossword
Crossword
puzzles.
puzzles.
So you
True,
improve that
true,
particular
true.
activity.
Right.
But the other thing that you're doing in your studies, a big part of it, is the social engagement.
I think people really underestimate how much neural stimulation is involved in social situations. We've developed an environment, a clinical trial, in a sense, in Dallas, and I call this environment Synapse. Okay, and Synapse is based on a different premise from the brain training games. Synapse is based on the idea that you want to engage people in lots of novelty. So we bring people in, they learn a skill that they've never learned before, such as quilting or digital photography. They have a professional instructor.
What happens? I mean,
We've just started the trial.
Yeah.
We have some preliminary evidence that people's memory, reasoning, and speed of processing improves, but it really is one of the very first clinical trials, and it's in its early stages. I wouldn't, at this point, bet the family farm on it, but it's based on, I think, sound science.
I think the science is very strong, as you pointed out. We have experiments from animal models that suggest very clearly that novel environments, such as what you're talking about, not only improve the actual functional abilities that they were trained on, but might also improve the number of connections between nerve cells that
well,
are formed.
this is the equivalent is the cross-training in a
That's
gym.
right, absolutely.
I would like to get back to my brain, if I may.
It's always about your brain, Robert.
That's why I took this job. I won because I was very strong in concentration and very weak in multitasking. Are these different parts of the brain?
Absolutely.
And can they be improved?
Well, there are different things that happen as one gets older. There are some things that get weaker and some things that get stronger.
What would, I mean, as I age, what's
Well,
getting
the
better?
things that typically get worse with time are what we call some frontal lobe abilities. So, for example, working memory, that is sort of your short-term memory, things that your frontal lobe is involved in, such as executive function, that's decision-making ability for certain day-to-day things. Also, speed of processing sometimes declines with aging, but the things that do get better are the result of experience. So you get better probably at making the more important decisions related to, for example, finances, related to family, social life. You're probably also having a better signal to noise in the brain, so sort of more clarity of thinking, if you will.
Signal to noise, you mean,
So there's
focusing in on specific things?
better focusing on the important issues and taking better decisions. That's what we call experience. So sometimes I like to